All right, for more on the United States matchup with England, great to welcome back into Futbol Americas el profe Juan Carlos Osorio. All right, before we get to the tactics board and everything, nobody's watching here. This is just between us. They've been using you a lot over on Futbol Picante, but you can tell everybody now what's your favorite show here on ESPN.
This one right here.
Yes, my guy.
Ahí está, el profe, telling you the truths that you need to hear. All right, so let's look back at this USA-England game, because I think a lot of people were surprised, not just that the United States, profe, were able to get a result, but the way that they played. So tactically, what was the best thing that the United States did to have such a good performance against England, in your opinion?
Right. I would like to start by saying that in the World Cup in Brazil, 4 national teams play with 3 in the back and 2 wing backs. Holland, Chile, Costa Rica, and Mexico. In this World Cup, looking at all my notes, there are about, so far, 10 teams that decide to play, 10 national teams that decide to play goalkeeper and the 4-3-3 system. So now, to understand and to get into the details, analyzing the house, we have to know the who's, because otherwise we get confused, and it's very simple to say they play 4-3-3, but actually the players make it.
They dictated the system.
Exactly. So if we compared England, then as Hercules Riley told me, they play with 2, and it's more like Rice and then Bellingham. But in possession, he goes and tries to join the attack, as he did against Iran with his header. And then the third midfielder is Mount, and it seems like he plays as a second striker in behind Kane. And then they have Saka and Sterling, or Grealish in the second half. Whether United States, it seems like Adams feels more comfortable because he's very athletic, very mobile, playing in this channel here, which is about 20 meters wide. And then that allows McKinney to play in this half space, which is about 11 meters. And he finds, when he's on the ball, he's able to run with the ball and make the opposite team to drop back, force them to go back. And then this guy helps, and he did
Musa,
in
yes.
the previous, Musa. Then you have basically 2, they call it in Spanish, llegadores, the guys that attack.
Arrive in the area, right?
Arrive in the area. They don't play staying there, but they go into the attack. Very different to Spain, for instance, that they progress as the game progresses itself, then they go forward. I'm talking about Gavi and Pedri. This pair of inside midfielders are very athletic, and I think that help Adam to do his job on when the other team gets possession. Then they help them back, and they held him back, and he's very tight, and every duel is contested, and every ball means a lot to these 3 central midfielders.
Profe, talk to me about Harry Kane, this guy right here, because even though he didn't score against Iran, he had 2 assists, and he seems to me like such an influential player for them, getting them going. He was limited to like 12 touches.
3 touches in the U.S. box the whole game.
That's crazy to me. How is it that this never got to Harry Kane?
Well, I think, again, the 3 central midfielders, the 3 American central midfielders, centrocampistas, they really make very difficult for any ball to pass into this. If he's Kane here, he would play in this in behind zone, which is the Z14 zone, and he has to get help from him in order to attract the 2 the 2 inside midfielders that helped Adam on the ball.
Yeah.
But they didn't do it because they always push, they always mark forward, so they keep this line very high up. And it surprised me because Zimmerman and Ream are not the fastest players.
No.
However, they were never exposed because he is quick, Robinson, and
Weah.
Dest.
Dest. So they can take the wingers, and then these two can hold the highlight, the line up, and therefore Kane is very limited, not only in touches but in chances to score.
You know, Profe, one of the things I was very impressed with was the work rate of Timothy Weah, who's a winger. And oftentimes, I don't know if you saw the same thing, but I saw him playing as a second forward in the way they defended. So it looked like a 4-4-2 for me when they defended.
Very good.
Did you see the same thing?
Yes, absolutely.
How important was that press,
And again,
Profe?
they are very athletic. Weah and the other forward, what's his name?
Haji Wright.
Haji Wright, yes.
I think that changed the whole thing because Sargent is a good player, but I don't see him being as physical as these two. So when you can put pressure higher up the pitch and then you can follow that with the three midfielders, then you can always try to regain possession in your offensive third, and then allows to get into the final third very, very quick.
How do we explain that versus Iran, these two players, Saka and Raheem Sterling, were so dynamic, just so explosive, and they weren't that way versus the United States men's national team?
Again, I do think because it's the way the whole system works, because their fullbacks, they can follow all the way because they are not afraid of this space here. Thinking that if the three midfielders put pressure on the guys that can distribute the ball, because don't forget, Rice, if there is one great quality about him is his distribution, but he was always pushing back and they didn't allow him to distribute the ball as Iran did.
Profe, let's think big picture on Gregg Berhalter, because you've now had a chance to see him manage 2 games in a World Cup. How would you describe him as a manager? Is he an aggressive manager? Is he a pragmatic manager? What qualities would you describe?
I think he's quite aggressive. And I think that he takes his chances. And I perfectly understood that, watching the way his team plays. And I agree with that type of play, to be honest, yes.
Even against a team like England?
I think because at the end of the day, that's your idea of playing football, and then you try to execute it. And if the other team gets a goal, at least you will create something. But if we just drop back, then like other teams do, then you basically are asking your team for problems, and you are playing to their strengths, to the opposition's strengths.
What about mentally? The fact that Iran beats Wales, and essentially, regardless whether you win or lose, your must-win game is Iran. As a coach, does that affect your lineup choice going into England, or are you still going with the same idea, same game plan, trying to get a result versus England, regardless of in 3-4 days it's
It's
Iran?
a different opponent, right?
I think that the subs are quite, in the roster, there should be 16 players that should be at that same level to play any game. Then you start 17, 18, 19, 20 is a different thing. But I would think that he has the chance to put maybe 1 or 2 other guys.
But you would have stayed the same against England?
I will stay the same thing, yes.
As we think about Iran, Profe, from an American perspective, because you've seen Iran twice now as well, what's your biggest worry?
Well, I think they are very good in the air, and they will play direct football. But the difference is who plays here in the middle. I would prefer a guy that has a good aerial game.
Is Adams good enough?
Well, I don't know. But I don't think that that's his strength. But again, what helps him to do a very good job is because the other inside midfielders are very physically, very athletic, and they put a lot of pressure on the opposite midfielders.
Coach, Profe, what makes it so difficult? Because they're young kids, so you could say, well, they could run around for days, but their athletic presence. I mean, they're technical on the ball. They're fast with the ball. Yunus Musa can drive with the ball.
Yeah.
But what makes it so difficult when you have that type of midfield? The MMA midfield is literally what they call it when they're
That's
so
the
athletic.
word. Thank you. That's the word I was looking for. Both can drive forward, both of them, and that is a big decision for the other team who takes him. Let's say if he runs with the ball, then somebody has to come, and sometimes it's him, or somebody is him, and then you can allow this passing lane here. And the Spanish player Pedri doesn't do that, but Gavi does. And I think these two inside midfielders are very athletic and very capable going back and forth, because don't forget, every time they go, this is 70 meters, so sometimes it's 70 meters and 105 to get back and 140 to get back, and not many footballers are capable of doing that.
One last question for you. You were known for your changes, for your rotations. Gregg Berhalter has an opportunity here. He's basically started the same lineup 2 games in a row with the 1 change up top. The 3rd game in a week. We're in Qatar. It's a huge, as you just pointed out, physical exertion for these midfield players, for all of the players. That is clearly his best 10. He believes that. Do you go with that again against Iran, or is it now time to dip into rotaciones, the changes?
I did say that from the game itself, I will stay the same, because obviously we all watch the game and they play head-to-head against England, which is one of the strongest team in the competition. But again, he could surprise in the starting line, and I don't know the squad that to say who should be playing, but I would probably reconsider the middle third.
Profe, you've already seen Iran these last 2 games. Gregg Berhalter has spoken about profiles of the 9. There's a 9 that's more ligero. He's more of a guy that's going to run and clear things with the space, the movement. That would be Jesus Ferreira. There's a 9 who's more physical, Haji Wright, who can give you that. And then there's a combination of the 2. He's called it a hybrid, which is Josh Sargent. What type of profile of 9 would you go for versus Iran?
Iran, I would probably go with the hybrid.
Really?
Because these 2 guys are very good in the air, the 2 central defenders, but to follow, let's say, whoever plays here, to follow this all the way, I don't see that happening. So if this is the scenario, and then he can be here, and 2 try to fix their back 4, then you start being 3 against 3, and then it becomes 4 against 3, numerical advantage in this middle third.
All right, Profe. Great stuff. Great to have you here breaking down United States against England. I guess we got to send you back to Futbol Picante, but you are welcome here on Futbol Americas, my man, at any time. Here then is Group B after 2 games. England sitting atop the group with 4 points. Iran second place with 3. United States with 2. Wales with 1. Iran and the United States will face off on Tuesday. The winner will be through to the knockout round.